So if you remember, like I have mentioned in the start of the video, like I will explain you like when to use HTTP client and what is the problem with HTTP client and why should we go ahead with the HTTP client factory. So actually HTTP client is generally used to call the third party APIs to send the HTTP request or receive the HTTP response, as we have seen in the recent videos. So HTTP client support all these endpoints which I have mentioned here: get, post, put, patch, delete request, having the request header, authentication, streaming, JSON APIs. For all these things, HTTP client supports. But there is a problem, major problem. So in the real world scenario, let's say you have thousands of users in your database, and for each user, your application calls the external API. Okay. For example, this is an example which I have created. This is a method which is processing the user. And for each user, you will have to call the third party API to get the details. Okay. So this is a nightmare because each time the iteration creates a new HTTP client connection, new TCP connection, new handlers, and socket is waiting time is wasting actually. Okay. So in the background, what is happening? Every minute it is reading the customer ID. It is calling the customer external API for each customer, and it is saving the response. So this creates a nightmare. To overcome this, we have come up with the HTTP client factory. So there is a one more solution. If you go ahead with the HTTP client, so we can create an HTTP client on topmost side, as I have mentioned here, and by using client, we can call the endpoints here. Okay, so this is reusing the connection. It is a good improvement, but still, if you can see like why HTTP client factory is better. So these are the points we have mentioned here, because when the problem with static or single HTTP client is single DNS. It is hard to configure multiple APIs, okay? Because we are using only single API, then it is easy. It is very hard for configuring the multiple APIs. Then no centralized retry policy. If any of the request is failing, it is very hard to centralize the retry policy. Next is difficulty in testing, difficulty in logging and tracing. If any of the request is failing, it will be very difficult for logging and tracing, and difficult for resilience handling. So that's why HTTP client factory is better than HTTP client.